My fiancé's parents tried to hijack our wedding, so we eloped and sent them a link to the live stream after it was over. The first sign of the coming storm was the guest list, a document that had once been a joyful compilation of the people we loved most in the world. My fiancée, Sarah, had shown it to her mother over a casual brunch, expecting suggestions, not a hostile takeover. Her mother's pen, a sharp, expensive thing, had hovered over the page like a talon before striking, drawing lines through 20 names. My college friends, Sarah's art school buddies, people who had supported us for years. "These simply won't do," she'd said, her voice a study in chilly dismissal. "Your father has essential business associates who must be accommodated. These people will understand." Sarah's face had fallen, but her protest was met with an immovable wall of condescension. The message was clear. Our wedding was not ours. It was a transaction, a social climbing event, and our feelings were the least important variable in the equation. The assault on our vision continued with the venue. We had found a perfect, family-run vineyard nestled in the rolling hills, a place that felt intimate and authentic, exactly like us. We'd put a deposit down with hearts full of excitement. A week later, her parents summoned us to a dinner that felt more like a corporate board meeting. Over seared scallops, her father announced, without preamble, that he had taken the liberty of canceling the vineyard. It's charming in a rustic way. The word rustic sounded like filthy in his mouth. But it lacks the necessary prestige. I've secured the grand ballroom at the Rutherford Club. It's settled. Sarah had gasped, her eyes welling up. The Rutherford Club was a cold marble monument to old money and stuffy tradition, the absolute antithesis of everything we wanted. My argument that we'd already put money down was waved away. "Consider it a lesson in contract law," her father replied, sipping his wine. "I've handled it." The final unforgivable blow was the prenuptial agreement. They presented it to Sarah over a tense lunch, a thick stack of legalese that felt heavy with mistrust. It wasn't a standard document, it was a weapon. It stipulated that in the event of a divorce, I would walk away with nothing, not a share of any assets acquired during the marriage, no potential spousal support, nothing. It even had clauses about my personal debt and future earnings. "It's just business," her father said, his eyes cold. "Standard practice for someone from your background." The pause before background was a deliberate, calculated insult, a reminder that my middle-class upbringing was a liability to be managed, not a history to be respected. Sarah had thrown the document on the table, her hands shaking, and run from the restaurant. I found her crying in our car, the last vestiges of her hope for her parents' support utterly shattered. That night, in the quiet sanctuary of our small apartment, surrounded by the life we'd built together away from their influence, we finally spoke the truth we'd both been avoiding. We looked at each other, tears drying on our faces, and knew with absolute certainty that we could not go through with their circus. The wedding they had designed was a grotesque parody of a celebration, a stage for their own ambition, where we were merely puppets. "I can't marry you in that ballroom," Sarah whispered, her voice raw. "I won't." And in that moment of despair, a wild, rebellious idea was born. We wouldn't just cancel, we would reclaim our day. We would execute a mission. The plan was codenamed Operation Sunrise and was planned with the meticulous detail of a military campaign. We told her parents we were attending a final mandatory tasting at the Rutherford Club, a lie they readily swallowed, thrilled we were finally falling in line. That morning, instead of putting on uncomfortable formal wear, we threw 2 backpacks into the trunk of my old car. Waiting for us at the curb were our 2 witnesses, my best friend Mark and Sarah's younger sister Qley, the only member of her family who had always seen her parents for who they were. We drove to the airport not with anxiety, but with a giddy, terrified excitement, like fugitives escaping a gilded prison. The flight to Santorini was a journey into another world, a liminal space between the life of control we were leaving and the freedom we were racing toward. Qley, who was brilliantly organized, had handled everything. She had contacted a local officiant, found a florist for a simple bouquet, and booked a photographer, all through encrypted messages. We landed as the sun was setting over the caldera, the whitewashed buildings glowing pink in the twilight. It felt like a dream. The ceremony was at dawn the next day. We stood on a private, secluded cliffside, the sky bleeding from indigo into a breathtaking palette of orange, pink, and gold. The Aegean Sea stretched out infinitely below us. There was no seating chart, no DJ, no five-tiered cake. There was just the four of us, the officiant, and the soft sound of the waves. Sarah wore a simple, elegant white dress she'd bought online. I wore a linen suit. We wrote our own vows, speaking them to each other as the sun broke over the horizon, illuminating her face. I had never seen her look more beautiful or more at peace. We were married not in a ballroom under a crystal chandelier, but under the vast, open sky, with the entire world feeling like our witness. It was imperfect, and it was perfect. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the clock was ticking toward the appointed hour of our supposed wedding. Her parents were at the Rutherford Club, surrounded by 300 confused and increasingly impatient guests. Her mother, in a horrifically expensive gown, was undoubtedly making strained small talk, blaming a slight delay with the florist. Her father would be checking his gold watch, his jaw tightening with each passing minute. Their phones and the phones of their hired wedding planner would be ringing incessantly, calling our numbers, which were powered off and buried at the bottom of my suitcase. The facade was cracking. The carefully constructed illusion of a perfect family giving their perfect daughter a perfect wedding was crumbling into dust in front of the very audience they had sought to impress. As we were landing back home, blissfully exhausted and legally married, they were likely in a state of full-blown panic. They would be concocting stories, a tragic car accident, a sudden illness, cold feet, anything to save face. They would be fielding horrified calls from guests, their social standing beginning its precipitous collapse. We turned on our phones at the baggage claim. The screens instantly lit up like fireworks, a relentless barrage of missed calls, voicemails, and text messages that ranged from concerned to furious. We didn't listen to a single one. We didn't call them back. We had one final move to make. We went straight to Mark's apartment, where his boyfriend, a talented video editor, had been waiting. We handed him the photographer's memory card. Working through the night, he crafted a beautiful 10-minute video of our entire ceremony. He set it to our favorite song, a folk tune her parents had vetoed for being too lowbrow. The video ended with the stunning shot of us kissing as the sun rose over the sea, followed by a simple, elegant title card. Thank you for giving us the perfect reason to have the perfect wedding. Love, Mr. and Mrs. Evans. We uploaded it to a private streaming platform and generated a single secure link. The next morning, as her parents were likely still reeling, nursing their humiliation and their hangovers, we sent a single group text. It went to her parents, to every single person on our original guest list, and to every one of the business associates they had tried to force upon us. There was no message, just the link. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. We could imagine the scene in their mansion, the shock, the sputtering rage, the dawning absolute horror as they realized they had been not only defied, but utterly outmaneuvered and publicly humiliated. Their own guest list had been used as the distribution network for their downfall. The fallout was nuclear, and it was delicious. Her parents were exposed as the controlling tyrants they were, their pristine image shattered in front of the very society they coveted. But the most poetic twist, the one we could never have planned, came via email. Sarah's father's most coveted client, a self-made billionaire known for his disdain for pretension, had been on the recipient list. He replied all to the original text thread. His message was brief and glorious. This is the best wedding I've ever been invited to. Authentic, bold, and true. Massive congratulations. Let's discuss that merger on Monday. I want to work with people who have this kind of spine. In their desperate attempt to control us to secure his business, they had lost control of their daughter and inadvertently handed him the very reason to finally sign the deal, because he admired the very rebellion they had tried to crush. We spent what would have been our wedding week on a blissful, secluded honeymoon, watching the supportive and amazed messages from our real friends and family roll in. The silence from her parents was a symphony. We had taken their hijacking and turned it into a liberation. We had started our marriage not with a party for them, but with a powerful statement of us. And we had learned right from the start that the family you choose is always stronger than the one you're born into.